Hello everyone, the Oscar nominations came out last week, and I finally got to see The Darkest Hour, and over this past week there's been a lot of talk about who got snubbed, who didn't, and I'm going to give my thoughts on who I think got snubbed, and my thoughts on the people that a lot of people are saying got snubbed. So everyone has a different thought about what a snub actually is, so I'm going based off of my definition of what a snub is. And for something to be called a snub, I personally feel like I have to have at least really liked whatever it is that is a possibility to get nominated. I feel like if I don't like a performance or the editing or the writing of something and it didn't get nominated, I'm not going to care if it didn't get nominated because I don't think it should have. But then again, I can't stick my head in the sand and say that my opinion is the only one that matters. Like, I feel that the whatever it is needs to have gotten wide acclaim, and it needs to have gotten nominated for other awards considerations. So, for example, even though I thought Will Poulter gave the Best Supporting Male Performance of the Year, I'm not going to say that he got snubbed because most people, while they really liked his performance, did not think his was in the top 5, so he was not nominated for any of the major awards ceremonies. Another thing for it to be considered a snub for me is that it has to have been significantly better than some of the ones nominated. And it had to have been glaring that those performances, to me at least, and in what my gauge of what other people think, that the performance or the aspect of the film that was not nominated is significantly better than the one that was. To start this off, I'm going to talk about Logan for Best Picture and Patrick Stewart for Best Supporting Actor for Logan. Now, when it comes to this, my thoughts are absolutely not. This is not a snub at all, because I don't feel like either of them really deserved it. And before everyone goes crazy, I liked the movie quite a bit. I'd give it like around a 7.5 out of 10. It's quite a good movie, but there are major issues with it. Like, I cannot get over the fact that a lot of the plot was spurred from a comic book, and characters just accept that people are basing things off of a comic book. The whole thing with the kids at the end, they were not developed well enough, and I didn't really care about them. And I know a lot of people are going to hate me for this, but I honestly don't think the R rating was necessary, and I think it detracted from the film. I think the language and the nudity in that was completely out of place and ended up being distracting in the overall context. And while the violence, I think, added something to it, I don't think it added enough to justify the detractions that the language and the nudity came, for me at least. And for Patrick Stewart, while I really liked his performance, and I thought his performance was one of the best parts of the movie, I do feel like the character did not come across in the way that they were truly intending it to. Whereas I feel like there wasn't much internal consistency with the character, and I get that they might have been going for that he's losing control of what is the greatest brain in the universe, so there shouldn't be consistency, but I don't feel like they found the middle ground between them. So I don't feel like that part of it was emphasized enough, or that there was enough consistency, and I feel like they weren't quite sure what to make of it. Now, on to my next one, which is Holly Hunter for The Big Sick. And as if you've seen my listings of my picks and predictions for Best Supporting Actress, I think that Holly Hunter gave what I would give the 4th best performance by a supporting actress this year. But I'm hesitant to call it a snub. I honestly feel that 3 of the nominees were better than her, and one of them I didn't even see. So I think that while she is significantly better than Octavia Spencer was in Shape of Water, I don't think it's that glaring of an omission, because I don't think that she would have been vying for any of the top spots. I think she would have been vying for the 4th or 5th spot. Next is the one that has been getting the most traction around, and that is James Franco for Lead Actor. And if you've seen my picks for Best Lead Actor, he was my number 2. Since then, I think he has flipped with Robert Pattinson and become my number 3, and Pattinson's become my number 2. And I saw Darkest Hour, and Oldman is well and away the best male lead performance of the year. So I don't necessarily know if I would call James Franco a snub, because I think that he is very similar to Kaluuya. I think he's very similar to Daniel Day-Lewis, and I haven't seen Roman J. Israel Esquire, so I can't comment on Denzel Washington's performance. but I don't really think that he's significantly better than a lot of the ones that actually were nominated. So I don't think you can actually call James Franco a snub, as disappointing as his omission was. Next, I feel that Martin McDonagh was snubbed for Best Director. I feel that Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri had a perfect blend of tones throughout it, and it really worked because of the flavor that McDonagh put into it in both the writing and the directing, and the performances are just incredible overall. I feel that Greta Gerwig should not have been nominated. I don't think she was in the top 10, maybe even 15 directing performances of the year. I think that the strengths with Lady Bird were in her writing. Her direction was very good. It just was not one of the best of the year. And I don't think that she holds any merit compared to Martin McDonagh's direction of Three Billboards. I also think that his direction of Three Billboards is way better than Paul Thomas Anderson's direction of Phantom Thread. And while I loved both Lady Bird and Phantom Thread, I think that there are other aspects, more particularly the writing, and in Phantom Thread a lot of the technical aspects and the acting in a lot of them, stood out more than the direction did. And in Three Billboards, I thought that the direction was one of the standouts of the film. And now onto what I would consider the biggest major snub of this year, and probably the biggest snub since the 2015 awards, in which Lego Movie didn't even get nominated for Best Animated Film, and Jake Gyllenhaal didn't even get nominated for Best Lead Actor when I thought he acted circles around anyone who was nominated. And that is Armie Hammer and Michael Stuhlbarg for Call Me By Your Name, that neither of them got nominated. And I know a lot of you may be saying, but you have only seen 3 out of the 5 nominees. Yes, and they were both leagues above any of the 3 that I saw. I think that Jenkins, Harrelson, and Rockwell are all nowhere near as good as Hammer or Stuhlbarg were. And at this level of performance, you have to nitpick. So a lot of the things that I will be saying in the next minute or so are going to be major nitpicks. So all of these performances are incredibly good, except for Harrelson's. Harrelson's performance was a good performance. It just didn't have to do much. He was playing Woody Harrelson in any movie he's in. He had the one scene towards the 60% of the way through the film that was really good, and that one scene at the beginning, but other than that, he didn't really actually have to do much. And I feel that while those scenes in particular were very good, I feel that they were not nearly as good as the extent that Stuhlbarg's were, even though their performances are very similar in a way. I thought when Stuhlbarg needed to hit, he hit a lot more than Harrelson did. Jenkins gave a great performance. He was probably my number 7 of the year, and I'd totally go with him getting nominated. Just not over Hammer and Stuhlbarg. I personally feel that Jenkins was very good throughout the majority of it. Had the one scene in particular where he's being convinced by Sally Hawkins to do something, that it was really good. But I thought overall his character didn't have much of an arc per se. And by the end of the film, I ended up wanting more from the character. And I know that has more to do with the writing than the acting, but if you aren't given enough to work with in the writing, I don't feel like the acting can really shine to the extent that it might need to for an Academy Award nomination. And then Rockwell, who's been winning pretty much all of the awards and is the front runner at this point. He was incredible throughout the majority of this film, just not at the very beginning. I thought the first 10 to 15 minutes, he was good but not great and didn't really get his stride until 15 minutes through the movie. But then once that happened, he was incredible. But I still feel like I need to dock him a bit for the first 15 minutes of that film. And this one scene towards the end, which I thought was a little over the top. So for me, those are my thoughts on what are the snubs of this year's Academy Awards. Leave your thoughts down below. Do you agree with me? Do you not? And hopefully over the next couple of weeks, I'll have more reviews coming out and more picks for who I think should and will actually win these awards. Thanks.